Dear students, today's topic is visual cortex. So objectives of this class will be to know about primary visual cortex, visual association areas, modified nomenclature of visual areas, histological layers of primary visual cortex, physiological considerations of the visual cortex. Underneath, we will look into the concept of receptive field of striate cortex, columnar organization of the same, serial versus parallel analysis of visual image, role of extrastriate cortex in visual functioning, psychophysiological aspects of visual functioning. This we will not go much in detail, and the last one we will look into it is other visual areas. So first we will look into the functional anatomy and organization of the visual cortex. So the visual areas are primary and secondary. Okay, primary is the one where the image first goes and falls. So here we have the primary visual cortex. It is also called as striate cortex or area 17. Then what we have is an association areas. Okay, these are peristriate cortex or area 18 and parastriate cortex or area 19. So area 17, Brodmann's area 17 is called as primary visual cortex. It is also called as striate cortex. In this diagram, you can see the striate cortex here in the occipital lobe, the area 17. You can also see the association areas which are extrastriate areas. So primary visual cortex or striate cortex or area 17, Brodmann's area 17, it is also called as V1, is present along the calcarine fissure. It is present along the medial surface of the occipital lobe. So here is it, medial surface of the occipital lobe, and it is present along the calcarine fissure. So here in the cortical area, the macula, which is the most important part of the vision, visual acuity, has a wide representation. So macula has much larger cortical representation than peripheral retina. Peripheral retina fibers are projected to the anterior part of area 17. Upper quadrants projects on the upper wall of the calcarine sulcus and lower quadrant on the lower wall of the calcarine sulcus. So you can see the calcarine sulcus here. Macular afferents gets projected on the posterior part of the area 17 and anteriorly to a thin strip along the calcarine sulcus. The macular area occupies nearly 1/3 of area 17. So here we are looking into the peristriate cortex or the visual association area 18. It is also called as V2. So here we can see the V2 here. This is a primary area. Above it, surrounding it, what we have is your peristriate or the visual association area 18. It lies in the walls of the lunate sulcus. So these are the lunate sulcus which lies in the walls of the lunate sulcus. Now we will look into the parastriate cortex or visual association area 19. So you can see here, this is 17, this is 18 and this is 19. So this is also called as area V3. It lies in the cortex in front of the lunate sulcus. So two sulcus you got to remember, calcarine sulcus and the lunate sulcus, where the primary areas and association areas are located. So here also you can see 17, 18 and 19 in the occipital pole. So some more things about your visual association areas. They are area 18 and 19 most importantly. Lies in the lateral part of the occipital cortex. They receive visual information from the primary visual cortex. It is important for the interpretation of visual stimuli. So interpretation means what it is. So it tells you about appreciating the finer details of the objects like perception of form, texture, shape, depth, location and orientation of the objects. So the details of the object and the interpretation occurs with the help of visual association areas. Lesion of these areas or association areas produce impairment of higher visual functions. So here you again see this is the primary visual cortex. This is the association areas where the interpretation of the information and finer details of the information are obtained. So we have a modified nomenclature of the visual areas. Not only the primary areas and secondary areas, some other parts of the brains are also involved in visual processing. So you can see here other parts of the brain are also involved in visual processing. We know V1, V2, V3. You have V4 V4 area 19 and V5, which is visual area 5. And this is important. Just middle temporal lobe. What is the importance? We will go and later in detail. So projections of primary visual cortex. So what are the projections? So V2, V3 and the parietal cortex, there is continuous information of your information. Area V3 and the temporal lobe, movement of an object. Area V8 is concerned with color vision. In yellow area, it recognizes recognition of larger objects. V4 and V7, we do not know the function. So here you can see V1, V2, V3, V3A, V4, V7, V8 and so on. So now we will look into histological layers of primary visual cortex. Like other cortical areas, you have 6 layers here. Layer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. But you have the layer 3 and 4 and 5 has subdivisions. So layer 1, 2 and 3 are thin and contain pyramidal cells. Layer 4 is the thickest and contains stellate cells. Area 4 may be further divided into alpha, A, B, C alpha and C beta. Layer 5 and 6 are again relatively thin layers. Area 4 is very, very important. You got so many relay information of the color visions occur here, and this is also other informations occur here. So layer 4 is very, very important. So here in the Brodmann's area 17 or the striate cortex V1, there is a wide layer of layer 4 and with the stria of Jennari. It looks like a striations. You look into the layer 4, it looks like a striations. And this is called as the stria of Jennari. So here you can see the lines of Jennari. So now we will look into the physiological considerations of visual cortex. Here you can see the Hubel and Wiesel, the scientists who worked much on these areas and got all the informations which we have now to us. And these works were majorly occurring during the year 1959. So we will discuss depending upon their concepts and observations. They gave us a lot of articles. So we will discuss under the following headings about the physiological considerations of visual cortex. One is we will look into the concept of receptive field of striate cortex. 2, we will look into the columnar organization of the striate cortex. 3, we will look into the serial versus parallel analysis of visual image. 4, we will look into the role of extrastriate cortex and in visual functions. So this was the experiments. Mostly cats were used and the electrodes were put into the brain of the cats in the visual cortex, and a stimulus was given, and depending upon the action potentials and excitation and inhibitions of the areas, depending the information was obtained. So here you can see the David H. Hubel. So first one, we will look into the concept of receptive field of striate cortex. So what is a receptive field? The area of the space of light which falls into your particular cell, that is your receptive field. So you have a receptive field in the retina, in the rods and cones, you have in the lateral geniculate body, the cells of the lateral geniculate body, you have for the cells of your primary visual cortex too. So the visual cortex, the orientation and configuration of the receptive fields differ from those of earlier points of the visual pathway. If you look into it, you look into the retina, the visual information falls as dots. As you go to the lateral geniculate body, that is also perceived as dots. But as you go to the primary visual cortex, it is perceived as a line. So the cortical neurons prefer stimuli in a form of straight line or bar or edge, present in a proper spatial orientation. So depending upon this peculiarities of receptive field, that there are 3 types of cortical cells. So you can see you have the simple cells, complex cells and hypercomplex cells. So when the image falls on, and the light rays falls on the ganglion cells and the bipolar cells, You go to the simple cells, goes to the complex cells, hypercomplex cells, where certain features are extracted, finer details are obtained, and it goes to the higher level detectors. So it is building up complex feature detection. So first we will look into the simple cells. Layer 4 of the primary visual cortex, Brodmann's area 17, has the simple cells. They form the first relay station within the visual cortex. It responds to the bars of light, lines or edges, but only when they have a particular orientation, vertical or horizontal, or lies at some degree of inclination. When a stimulus is rotated as little as 10 degrees from the precise position, the response decreases. It has a receptive field axis orientation. That means the orientation of a stimulus that is most effective in evoking a response. So you look into this picture, this is a simple cells. So if a bar of light falls on a simple cell in a particular orientation, then it will get stimulated, it gets excited. You can see here, it throws the action potentials. But if the orientation is not in that particular position or in some other axis, then there is no response. You have the off response. So simple cells responds to light in a particular orientation. So here you can see the simple cell here. If this is the orientation, then it will pass on to the next cell. On-center and off-center responses. So now, like any other cell, you have the on-center and off-center responses here. If the light rays falls in a particular direction, okay, so here you can see the receptive field of a simple cell, primary visual cortex. If it falls here, okay, so this is active. So you have a excitation here, it is excited. But you see here the second field, okay, it falls in the off center and there is inhibition. If it falls in some other axis, there is no excitation, there is inhibition. So receptive fields of simple cells, the receptive fields have parallel bands of on and off regions. Concentric center surround arrangement of is there in the geniculate bodies as well as in the bipolar cells and ganglion cells. Again you can see in this picture there is no stimulus here, there is a baseline activity. When the light falls in some other axis, there is no response. When the light falls in a particular orientation of that particular simple cell, there is a strong response. Central band, that is either an on region or an off region, is there, and parallel flanking regions on two sides are opposite. So you have the on-center and off-center responses. Neurons of the visual cortex respond to a linear stimulus like lines, edges, bars of light. Stimulus can be a bar of light against a dark background or a dark bar against a light background. So layer 4, any area, other layers orientation of the stimulus. Here again you can see in this picture a light bar around a dark background. Here around light background, and these are the edges. We will look into the complex cells. Complex cells have much more information. So complex cells, you see here in this diagram, there is a bar of light falling on the visual field of the complex cell. So if this bar of light moves further in a particular direction, then it gets stimulated. But it is some other axis and it is not moving, then it is not getting stimulated. So the excitation of the complex cells depends upon the light rays which are moving. So these cells are present above and below the layer 4 of the visual areas. It is in the 18 and 19 of the visual cortex. It is rarely present in the area layer 4. So linear stimulus moved laterally without change in its orientation. So here there is a preferred orientation and preferred direction. When it is moving, then there is a excitation and it gets stimulated. So if it is in some other direction, there is no response. So it is concerned with movement and velocity of the stimulus and less with the central location. Complex cells are binocular, receives information from both the eyes. So the simple and complex cells are called as feature detectors. Feature detectors means nerve cells in the visual cortex that respond to specific features such as edges, angles and movement. So you can see the cell's response or a particular stimulus, particular orientation. So these are called as feature detectors. So by means of simple and complex cells, the person receives the features, orientation and movement of the objects. You can see the features here, the local detectors, where we can look into the nose, eyes, mouth, and we determine that is the face. So simple and complex cells are called as feature detectors. Now we go to the hypercomplex cells or end-stopped cells. So what does this hypercomplex cells do? First we will understand this. So it has the property of the simple cells and the complex cells, plus additionally it will respond to a light of a particular length. So if this is a length, then that is the cell which is getting excited. If the length is smaller or longer, there is no response. So it responds to the length of the light bar. So these cells are present in the cortical layers 2 and 3 of the area 17, 18 and 19. Specific detection of lines of specific length, angles or shapes are due to the hypercomplex cells or end-stopped cells. So here you can see the length detector is there. If it is of particular length, then it stimulates. A smaller length, no stimulation. Longer length, no stimulation. Also width is also detected, as well as angle is also detected. So moving bar with a precise orientation but also with a definite length is being recognized by your hypercomplex cells. So when you look into the receptive fields of the cortical cells, the inputs are to the simple cells have a smaller receptive field, complex cells have larger receptive field, and hypercomplex cells have much larger receptive field. So these are the receptive fields. See the receptive fields here. So what is binocular depth perception? Visual cortex receives information regarding orientation, movement, depth, velocity as well as color of an object and help in depth perception and stereopsis. So the binocular vision tells you where is the object is, how the object is, which is in the front, which is in the back. All these ones, these are called as binocular depth perception. So in this picture also you can see one card behind one card, behind that another card, behind that another card. So it gives a depth, okay, and this perceptive, relative size, occlusion and texture gradients all attribute to the three-dimensional appearance of this photo. So and this is because of this information passing through the simple, complex and hyper-complex cells. Second one which we are going to see now is the columnar organization of the striate cortex. So the striate cortex is anatomically arranged in such a way that it is layer by layer. We know that it has 6 layers, isn't it? But in the 6 layers, what happens is they have divisions. Like the hypercolumn. First we will look into hypercolumn. Then I will explain what it is. Hypercolumns are vertically oriented functional modules processes. It processes visual information from a specific region of the visual field, lines of all orientation from a particular region of a space. So hypercolumns means the columns which receive information from the specific region of your visual field. So here each hypercolumn is divided into 3 types of vertical columns. These are orientation columns, ocular dominance columns and color blobs. In this picture, you can see from the lateral geniculate body, the information is passing on to the cortical area 4. And here, these are the cortical areas, area 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And they are divided horizontally into layers, okay. And from a particular, this is a hypercolumn of the primary visual cortex, where it is divided into orientation columns. You can see like this, orientation columns. Okay, so orientation means a direction. So here these cells here will respond to a particular direction. This is to another direction, this is to a third direction, this is to a fourth direction and so on. So the orientation means they will detect the light bars with a particular orientation. These are called as orientation columns. Next what we will see is ocular dominance columns. As the name says, ocular dominance means the dominant eyes, okay, the right eye and the left eye. So here you can see the ipsilateral eye, here you can see the contralateral eye. or the left eye and the right eye. So the information comes alternatively placed along the cortex, and this is called as ocular dominance columns. Then you can see a structure here, the round structures here. These are called as blobs. Blobs are concerned with your color vision. So here you can see the hypercolumn cells, and these are further divided into orientation columns. Here you can see the layer 1, 2, 3, 4 like that. It is like a chip. So orientation columns, we will go much more. Again we will revise. Orientation columns means the cortical layers are divided vertically, okay, depending upon the cells which are receiving particular orientation information of the light pass. So it is a unit of organization of the visual cortex which can be defined as vertical grouping of cells with identical orientation specificity. So here also you can see the orientation columns. Here you can see the ipsilateral eye and the contralateral eye, left eye, right eye, left eye, right eye, like that. And here you can see the color blobs which are concerned with your color vision. So several billion vertical columns are there, neuronal cells are there as a orientation column, each being about 30 to 100 micrometers wide, 2 millimeters depth. From one column to the next, orientation preferences changes to 5 to 10 degrees. So possible orientation preferred reference at small intervals is throughout 360 degrees. Each ganglion cell receptive field in the visual field, there is a collection of column. So here again you can see the orientation columns. So here these are the layers and these are the orientation columns. Perpendicular to the ocular dominant columns are the orientation columns. 180 degrees rotation per 800 millimeters of cortex. That is the configuration. Ocular dominance columns. So again, as we know already, ocular dominance means it is concerned with a particular eye. So here, perpendicular to the orientation columns, it is again divided, and these are called as ocular dominant columns. So independent system of columns with respect to the binocular input of cortical cells. These neurons with receptive field dominated by one eye are grouped alternatively into left eye and the right eye columns. They are 0.25 to 0.5 millimeters in depth. So this is concerned with the binocular stereoscopic vision. Stereoscopic vision shows that contralateral and ipsilateral input from lateral geniculate bodies will pair separately. This will synapse on the layer 4 on the cortex in ocular dominance column. So you can see the left, right, these are ocular dominance columns. If there is a defect in the information of ocular dominance columns, during the critical period, about 5 years or 6 years of age, there will be visual problems. Absence or loss of depth perception will be there. Amblyopia, abnormal visual information during early development can be there. Strabismus, deviation of one or both eyes can be there. Congenital cataracts, cloudy lens can occur. The third one is the color blobs. Color blobs are concerned with colors. So the interspersed among the primary visual columns are special column-like areas called color blobs. Receive lateral signals from the adjacent visual columns. So they respond specifically to color signals. So primary visual areas disappearing color, certain secondary visual areas, additional color blobs are there for higher levels of color disappearing. So here you can see if this is the layers of visual cortex, the layers area 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this is divided like this into orientation columns like this. Okay, particularly like this. Okay, this one you see here. Here will be your right eye, left eye, right eye, left eye, right eye, left eye. So this is the visual area layer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It is divided like this into your orientation columns, divided like this into your right ocular dominant columns. Interspersed in this are your cones or blobs. which are concerned with color vision. So here, with the color blobs, they respond specifically to the color signals. Primary area for discerning color and certain secondary visual areas also. Additional color blobs are there for higher level of color deciphering. Third one, we will look into the concept of parallel and serial processing of visual information. So what is this? The visual information is extracted as it passes through the optic pathway. So here you have the P and M cells you have in the retina, and the visual information from one field, it goes to one pathway, goes to the lateral geniculate body of particular area, goes to the primary cortex for an analysis, as well as the image passes to the other part of the lateral geniculate body, it goes to some other part of the visual area for processing. So this is the processing which is occurring at the retinal level, at the lateral geniculate body level, and in the cortical level. Parallelly the processing occurs. The processing can also occur first in the retina, then in the lateral geniculate body, then in the cortex. This is also called as processing, and this is serial processing. So we will look into what these are. So you have the parallel processing pathways and serial processing pathways. I think you understood what is the meaning of parallel processing and serial processing. Parallel processing pathways are of two types, magnocellular pathway and parvocellular pathway. Serial processing of visual images occurring in the retina, then it can occur in your visual cortex. So here you can see it's a stream 1 which recognizes the shape. This is parallelly localization. Stream 3, some other features like that. So these are all parallel light processing process. In one particular shape recognition, for example, it goes with step 1, 2, 3, and this is called as serial processing. Okay. So now we will look into parallel processing of pathways. So you have the visual pathway made up of two lanes compared like two lanes of a road. So you have the magnocellular pathway made up of larger cells and parvocellular pathway made up of smaller cells. So here you can see the visual cortex, the information is coming to the visual cortex. From there it goes in two directions, above which this is magnocellular pathway. This is this will say the location of the particular image in the space. The where pathway it is also called. Here it comes down to the temporal lobe where the parvocellular pathway, what are the details of that particular image. So this parvocellular pathway which is going to the temporal lobe, this is called as ventral pathway. The magnocellular pathway which goes to the parietal lobe, and this is called as dorsal pathway. So dorsal pathway or the parietal pathway or the magnocellular pathway is concerned with the location, and the parvocellular pathway or the dorsal pathway, ventral pathway or the temporal lobe which goes to the temporal lobe is concerned with your finer details. So this is where and this is what. So analysis of different features of the image occurs here. So what happens here in the magnocellular pathway or the dorsal cortical pathway? M cells of the ganglion cells of the retina goes to the magnocellular layers of the lateral geniculate body, layer 1 and 2. It goes to the striate cortex first to the layer 4 C alpha, then directly go to the temporal lobe and the posterior parietal cortex. So this is involved in the processing and detection of movement, depth and flicker features of visual information, specifies location of visual impulse of a larger receptive field. So here you can see this dorsal stream or M stream. Parvocellular pathway, the P ganglion cells of the retina gives projections to the parvocellular layers of the lateral geniculate body, layer 3 and 6, and from there it projects to the layer 4 C beta of striate cortex. From there information goes to the blobs, thin stripes in V2 and interblobs of V1, interstripes in V2. So the ventral stream is concerned with color vision, texture, shape and finer details. So it goes to the forms and colors are recognized because of the ventral stream. So here you can see the images from the retinal ganglion cells comes to the parvocellular pathway, and the color selective, slow, low contrast sensitivity, high resolution. It goes to the later layers of the lateral body, and it projects to the visual cortex, and it is further informations are obtained here. So it goes to the temporal regions for your stereo movement and stereo analysis, and for the higher visual cortex, color, shape, etc. from your magnocellular pathway. Now we will look into serial processing of the retina. That means the object or the image is analyzed sequentially. So allows only one object at a time to be processed. It involves 3 stages: first image, second image, and third image. So first image, so here when the light falls on the retina, it falls on the receptor cells, then it goes to the bipolar cells, modified with the help of your horizontal cells, passed information to the ganglion cells, and these information projected to the brain through the pathway. So what happens here? Action of light on the photoreceptors. Photoreceptors break up this image into small spots of lights of darkness. This is the first image. Sharpening of this image contrast occurs as it passes through. Second image. The first image is converted into second image in the bipolar cells. Signal is altered by the horizontal cells, which causes spatial summation by lateral inhibition. Third image is by your ganglion cells. The signal is altered by amacrine cells, which causes temporal summation. This is the image which reaches your occipital cortex. So when it reaches the occipital cortex, you have serial analysis of visual image in the visual cortex too. So several simple cells of the same orientation, monocular cells, then the complex cells with the binocular images, then it goes to the hypercomplex, more advanced processing occurs here. So now we will go into the fourth aspect. We looked into the receptive fields of the visual cortex. We looked into the pathways, serial processings. We looked into serial processings. We looked into the orientation columns. Now we will look into the role of extrastriate cortex in visual functions. So you can see here, these are the oranges and yellow part. These are called as extrastriate cortex. So they are specialized for different aspects of visual scene. Processing of specific features of visual information occurs here. The middle temporal area, MT, responds selectively to a direction of a moving edge without regards to its color. So these are some features of importance of the extrastriate cortex in visual processing. So neurons in another cortical area called V4 respond selectively to the color of a visual stimulus without regards to its direction of movement. So V4 is concerned with your colored. Area 18, first image in processing of feature of extraction of retinoscopic images from layer 4. Area 18 is concerned with this. Area 19, it extracts shape recognition, much more features. Shape recognition, attentional and multimodal integration functions occur here. So now we will look into other important visual areas of concern. One is the frontal eye field, superior colliculus, pretectal nucleus and suprachiasmatic nucleus. Frontal eye field, so this is the occipital area which is concerned with your visual images, but along with that what we have is the frontal lobe here, a part of it which is called as frontal eye field, which is involved with the voluntary fast saccadic horizontal eye movements. So frontal eye field area 8, Brodmann's area 8 is present in the frontal gyrus. It controls saccadic eye movements. Convergence, divergence and near response is influenced by this frontal eye field. So next one we will look into the superior colliculi, which is in the midbrain. So here you can see that it is divided into superficial and deep layers. The superficial layers receive optic fibers from and it descends to the visual cortex, projects through various thalamic nuclei. The nuclei involved are the anterior thalamic nuclei, pulvinar and the lateral geniculate body. They receive information from both the eyes. So they are involved with what? We will see. So the discharge in response to a stimulus moving quickly in a particular direction. They are concerned with the coordination and simultaneous bilateral eye movements like saccades, convergence, and keep the eyeball in focus. So superior colliculus, deeper layers receive inputs from the superficial layer receives inputs, visual inputs, and also inputs from the auditory fibers. So somatosensory inputs also they receive. They are involved in the head and the eye position, and the sensory informations are integrated. Various reflex activities that involve in appropriate head movement and change in the eye position. Like if I want to change my head like this information, okay, the head change, the eye change, it is a reflex activity. If I hear a sound, I just move my head. So these information, this reflex action occurs because of the superior colliculi, where they get informations in the deeper layers are concerned with this. Next, what we have is a pretectal nucleus. So these fibers from the optic tract project to the pretectal nucleus and causes activation of Edinger-Westphal nucleus. These fibers mediate pupillary reflexes and are involved in regulation of visual fixation. So you can see here the midbrain, you have the pretectal area, you have by the superior colliculus is present, you have the Edinger-Westphal nucleus which is getting information, and through the third nerve gives information to the ciliary ganglion from their short ciliary nerves to your eye. So these are concerned with your light reflexes, which are dealt in some other class in detail. So what is pupillary light reflex? Just slight understanding here. Light source falls on the eyeball, it is passed to the optic pathway, and it causes a constriction of the pupils. That is pupillary light reflex. Next one of concern is suprachiasmatic nucleus. So you already know what is suprachiasmatic nucleus, isn't it? It is a part of your nucleus present in your hypothalamus. It is a small nucleus in the medial hypothalamus just above the optic chiasma, and this is biological clock. So we know the rhythm which we undergo, day, night, light, dark, sleep, wake, all these cycles are because of this biological clock, that is suprachiasmatic nucleus. Here you can see the light falling on the retina, passing on to the suprachiasmatic nucleus, then comes down to the spinal cord, then again back to the pineal gland, which inhibits melatonin release. If there is no light, it releases melatonin, and that is a sleep hormone, which says that it is night and you got to sleep. So this suprachiasmatic nucleus receives fibers from the optic nerve. It synchronizes sleep-wake cycle, secretion of hormones like cortisol and so many other hormones too. Circadian rhythms are concerned with this. This is a biological clock, and this occurs because of the light rays falling on the retina and the information passing to the suprachiasmatic nucleus. So if there is any injury or any occlusion of the arteries, blood supply supplying your cortical areas, it encounters with blindness, but this results in macular sparing. So the finer details, because macula has a wide representation in the cortical areas, the information is spared from the macular area. Thank you.